in my notes, look at the line, and I completely ignored it. Alright, I told you the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do. Okay. So from the homework chapter 4, number 17, you're actually going to want to look at the line and not your r squared. So chapter 4 homework, and I think this is on the quiz too, somewhere in there. Number 17. So for part A, that's not going to be too bad. We talked about last time. But for part B, you're going to look at your least squares regression line and not r squared when you do that one. So when you do the outlier, somebody said last time, I don't think she's here, that you want to look at where it is x's and y's, not just x's, and that's actually true. So if it's an outlier, don't worry about the x's, so everything I told you last time is not right. See if it's an outlier, you're just looking, is the point far from the others? And you're going to look at the x's and the y's, not just the x's. I told you last time, just look at the x's, that was fine. And then if it's an influential point, again, you want to look at your least squares regression line, not your r squared. But this one, pull up all of my things. In there. And I'm going to add in my 12th car real quick. That weighs 3425. And it gets 13 miles per gallon. Stat, calc 4. First one I'll just put in my r squared. Move my decimal over, so it's 47.6. Around it. So I think it's going to decrease it. Okay, and then this part they just ask you and it's multiple choice. So what we're going to do for this one, we're not going to look at r squared like I said to do last time. We're just going to look at the least squares regression line. So they tell us that before, so with just the 11 cars, that my y hat was, and yours is going to be different, your numbers, negative 0.006x plus 41.459. That's what it was with the 11 cars, but now when you add your 12th car, it's going to be different. And that one I actually have on my screen from when I found my r squared. So it's going to be negative 0.006x if I round my a to 3 decimal places, and then 42.149. Okay, so now when we're figuring out if it's an influential point or not, we're going to be comparing these two. So here's my slope. You can tell when you add in the 12th car, that doesn't change your slope. It's actually the exact same number. Sometimes when I do it, I get a 0.005 for one or the other, and it's off by maybe like 1/1000, and it's really not that big of a deal. So, but in this close, your slope hasn't changed at all. If you look at your y-intercepts, those have changed slightly by about 0.7 or so, but it's really not too big of a change. So if you look at just the equations, they don't look like they've changed all that much. If you want to verify by graphing them, because sometimes 0.7 is a big deal, sometimes it's not. It just kind of depends on the values you're looking at. So if you want to graph this out, you could go, well, not there, oh my goodness. Here to your y equals, and then just type both of those in. So I'll do negative 0.006, and then my x is this variable button here between my alpha and my stat, plus 41.459. And then I'll put in my second one under y2, negative 0.006. Again, use my variable button, plus 42.149. All right, let me check my stat plots. First one's on, it's a scatter plot. I've got L1 and L2, so I'm set, so I'll do zoom 9. And they'll give me my scatter plot here. And then I've got my two least squares regression line. The one on the bottom is my first one, and the one on the top is my second one. So now you can tell this little square right there, that's my 12th car that we added in with the 13 miles per gallon. That's a lot lower than all of the other ones. So the x fits in with all of the other ones, but the y doesn't. So they're going to consider this to be an outlier because it's far away from all of the other ones. They're kind of grouped up there, and then you've got this one random point that's really far below everything else. So this one's going to be an outlier. And now if you look at the graph of those two lines, they're really, really close together. Wondering why that line went up. That's strange. But if you look at the two lines, they just shifted slightly. They've got the same exact slope, so they're still the same, grade, how far down they go, or what angle they're at. But we just shifted it up slightly. So those lines are pretty close to each other. It didn't really alter it all that much. So because the lines are similar, we're going to say that it's not an influential point. They changed a little bit, but really not all that much. Think back to the example we saw with the states. Texas wasn't an influential point because it shifted it slightly. Alaska was an influential point because it shifted it quite a bit. So for this one, we'll say that it's not an influential point up here, but it is an outlier because it's far away from all of the other ones. So that's the one that you'll select for this one. So this one is not influential, but it's an outlier. Like I said, that one shows up on the quiz. And I don't have influential points or outliers on the test. So the one on the quiz is going to look pretty much just like this. So as long as you're okay with this problem, you'll be okay with influential points because it's not going to show up on the test. So that's how I should have done 17 last time. Okay. Are there other questions from the homework or the quiz from chapter 7 before we move on? Yeah.
Number 12.
Yeah. 17 that. Okay, so we've got the weight and the miles per gallon. They tell you that the weight is the x and the miles per gallon is the y. So if we put your x's into your L1 and your y's into your L2, stat edit. This one's not too long, so that's nice. So I've got them all into my L1 and my L2, so I'll go to stat, calc, and then number 4 for my linear regression to get my least squares regression line. They want you to round the x coefficient to 5 decimal places. So that's 0.00634 with a negative in front of it. So that's 5 decimal places. And And then my constant term is gonna be round to 1 decimal place, so that's gonna be 42.7 if I round that one. 42.7. My answer. All right, so now we're gonna look at slope and y-intercept. So we're gonna choose the best interpretation of slope. You can always interpret slope. The y-intercept is the one that maybe you can't really interpret.